Welcome back, Badgers, to our podcast. So this is a few weeks old now. James Bledge and I recorded this at Harrogate, BTME 2023, and we've got a couple more still to come from there. Spring is silly season in the architecture world, finishing off reports and supervising work and everything else. So hopefully with the lighter nights, I also have a bit more time to dedicate to golf badges, and to all of you who have so kindly listened to the episodes that we've released so far and keep asking me when the next one is coming out. This is an interview with Dan Lightfoot of Syngenta. We hope you enjoy.
And we are in the majestic hotel car park in the Badger Sett recording studio, which is the Links from the Road van cross-purpose for BTME at Harrogate this week. It's been well kitted out, and we're starting off with a fabulous guest this morning.
I'm not supposed to laugh.
We can edit that out.
Okay.
But another good friend of mine and a mentor in many ways that I've worked with throughout my career, and especially the kind of latter stage of my career, Mr. Daniel Lightfoot.
Thank you. Well, what an absolute privilege to be in the set.
Do you like the decor?
I love it. I love the fact that there's a badger.
So my son Fletcher got this for Sam in a service station.
Where can you remember when exactly you got that?
No.
You got that for me on the way home from your Hoylake interview.
Oh, was that right?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe the way up.
That was good.
Because you gave it to me.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Actually, I do remember that now. God, my memory pickled. But yeah, so we're going to have a series of podcasts here with some of the guys kicking about the show, and we're starting from the top here with Dan. So, would you care to introduce yourself and give us a quick rundown of your career to date?
Oh, blimey! Right. Yeah. Do you know what? It's interesting. I've been to BTME since 1994, and I think I've been here as almost every part of the golf industry. I've been here as an assistant. I've been here as a first assistant, a deputy, a head greenkeeper, a course manager, a lecturer, and also now working for Syngenta. So but a lot of people ask me what my job is, and I kind of sometimes struggle to answer that question. But my actual title is commercial head for Western Europe and Italy for Syngenta SPS. So Syngenta is a very big, multinational organisation that's split into essentially three sections. You've got crop protection, so the agriculture part. You've got seeds, so a lot of the things that you buy from Sainsbury's or Lidl, Aldi are grown with Syngenta seeds. So then obviously you've got a lot of beer, like barley and various other things. So a lot of the seeds come from that. And then everything that's non-agriculture, so turf and landscape, horticulture, professional pest control, malaria control in Africa, amateur products, everything that's non-ag is what we call Syngenta Professional Solutions. So I look after the commercial operations for Syngenta Professional Solutions for UK and Ireland, all the countries in the Nordics, all the countries in Benelux, France and Italy. So, I don't know, 11, 12 countries or something. And then across all of those business parameters. But I came into it for a background in golf. So I finished my A-levels in history, politics and economics. Not really perfect for going into a career in...
But like my biology, chemistry and physics, really good for golf.
Yeah, I thought perfect for setting up a mower. And then I was going to go to Leeds and do international politics and economics, and then had this kind of about change and went and did a HND in golf course management at Reese Heath. And it's kind of full-time, 3 years, with a kind of year gap where I did a placement. So then came out and I wasn't really ready for anything other than going and working on a golf course. And when you have your year placement, everyone went off and did different things. And I did mine at the Hertfordshire Golf Club. Jack Nicklaus course had just been built in that kind of boom in the mid-90s. And so they offered me a job. They said, we'd love you on your placement. As soon as you finish, then you can come back. And so I worked there. So I worked at the Hertfordshire for 3 years and then got a deputy's job at Gatton Manor. So that's down in Sussex. So kind of upped and left London and kind of moved down to there, where I was a deputy and then head greenkeeper, deputy for about a year and a half and then head greenkeeper about a year and a half. But to be honest, it wasn't a club that I didn't want to stay there. I didn't enjoy it. In Hertfordshire, I'd loved it. And there was a lot of really talented people in our team, a lot of people who are course managers today. It was a real great buzz. Just didn't settle there. I didn't like it. So I got offered a job as lecturer in turfgrass science at Merriswood. And I thought, do you know what?
What age were you then?
So 26.
That's young for a lecturer.
Yeah, do you know what? And it was really difficult. And I always think I'd love to go back and do it now, because all the knowledge and all the stuff that I know now, I'd be a much better lecturer than
You'd probably look back at yourself teaching then and be like, what was I talking about? Because now you can bolster it so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I had to do the academic understanding, but it was really that kind of examples and the way that you kind of bring the story to life, I think, was something that I found really much more difficult. And also, Ben Edwards, a really good friend of mine, he's course manager at West Hill.
And love that guy.
Brilliant, love Ben. And Ben was, I taught the level 2s, level 3, and a bit of the HNC. And Ben was at San Martin's. I think he'd just been made head greenkeeper. John Day, who was at Woking, and a few other, Nick Paris, who's at Royal Wimbledon, they were all students of mine. I wasn't much older than any of them, and there's me kind of having to kind of tell them what to do for their level 3. And really, in terms of experience, there wasn't much difference in that. Maybe they've had even more experience than me. But what I totally learned from that, because I think when you go outside of turf grass, you learn skills that you wouldn't have got if you'd have done another 2 years at Gatton Manor. And I was able to learn how to kind of talk. You had to talk for the level 2, 8 hours. You had to really get people engaged. You had to talk to different people. You had people of different abilities. So really amazing way to do that. And they then funded me to do a master's degree in sports surface technology at Cranfield University. So I started that. Then as I started, probably everyone gets like a big break. At some point something kind of breaks, and everyone's you get this bit which is a kind of really makes a difference. And I applied for the golf course manager's job at Bearwood Lakes. Now, I don't know, luck, whatever. It was just that time. I was only 27, maybe 28, I think. 28 I was, and it's a brilliant job. You've been there, brilliant golf.
Have you been there, son?
No, I've not been.
Amazing place. I loved it. Really amazing. And then I got offered the course manager's job at there, because I had a couple of students that were at Bearwood, and they came in one day and I said, "Oh, I see Phil's left," who was his boss, and they said, "Oh yeah, the job's up." And I was like, "Oh, right, okay." And applied for it, and I got it. Did a good interview. I think a lot of people in the local area must have been like, "How's he gone from being a lecturer there with very little experience as a head coach to go to one of the really super sites?" And then I did 10 years at Bearwood. Amazing. I then, during that time, did my master's degree in sports service technology at Cranfield. Amazing, absolutely brilliant. They don't do that course anymore, and I know. We're at BTME, and I know everyone's, the education's amazing, and I love it. I've just come from a budgeting thing. But I do have a little bit of a thing that I still think that high-level education, the master's degree level in sports surface, is never enough. Sometimes these courses kind of come and they never not supported, but there's not enough people wanting to do them to keep them going for long enough. So you get this kind of window of when it's an opportunity.
Why do you think that is? Like, Bledge, if you had your guys and one of them came to you and said, "I'm thinking of doing a master's in this," surely that's a great thing for them to do and work alongside. Can you still do that stuff?
So no, that course finished. So it was of its time. The last year they had one person apply, so then they kind of finished it off. So I think it kind of was alive for 6 years or something. So there's a window where you could have done it.
Aimed at people in the industry already.
Yeah, they are starting to do a high-end management course now. Again, they're bringing something back. Because I was asked about it. I don't know whether it's like a level 5 or a 6 or something like that, but it would be like what exactly kind of that standard that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's great. Like, we do so much good work at level 2, level 3, and we do a lot of stuff there. But I sometimes feel like there's not enough. And one of the problems we have is we moan in the industry about the fact that golf course managers don't get enough money and don't get paid enough. However, really, I think if you had more people there with like degrees and master's degrees,
The American way.
yeah, there's a little bit of me that kind of thinks that is one of the ways to elevate it. Like my wife's a newsreader, so she works for the BBC. To do her job, you have to have a postgraduate degree.
You would need to get her in to give us some microphone advice.
Yeah, and or being a doctor or whatever, you have to have these level of qualifications to be able to do the job. And I'm not saying that you have to do that as a golf course manager, but I do feel like I'd like to see us, invest as much time in the higher level education as we do in the kind of lower level. But a little bit of a
serious job. There's a lot of risk. Absolutely. I mean, look at our course just now, for example. I mean, the slightest mistake or whatever, and you're ruining potentially what could be millions of pounds income,
hundreds of millions of pounds worth of revenue
for the surrounding area,
like pressure. But it seems that like I am the guy completely on the outside of the industry. But it seems just playing golf and always being interested in this stuff, even over my lifetime, perhaps this might be completely unfair, so shoot me down, but in years gone by, the greenkeeping compounds and the guys, it was more like going to, when you went to get your car serviced a while ago, and it was a bit more oily and a bit more guys, sort of at the coalface. Whereas now, you go and get your car serviced and they plug a laptop into it and twiddle a few buttons. And it's so much more scientific and professional. And that's what I see as an outsider in the greenkeeping industry. Is that fair? Is that how it's? Have you noticed that change?
I think so. That's then that probably doesn't do us any favours in the fact that it's become way more professional. It's become really much more scientific, and also you've got to compete against all other people that are still driving that same way. The levels are going up all of the time. So yeah, I think interestingly, one of the things that really helped me in terms of that kind of relationship, I guess, with members, and when I was at Bearwood, loved it, absolutely brilliant. I did my master's degree there, but I did my Master Greenkeeper Award, and I got, in the same year that I did passed my master's degree, I passed my Master Greenkeeper Award, and that elevate in the eyes of the members. They didn't really care that I did my master's degree, but when I was the 48th Master Greenkeeper, as far as the members were concerned, that's what they all talked about, because they like to say, they're all very proud of their own club. They're all very proud of what their club does. I did we were the second club to achieve GEO status, but it was the Master Greenkeeper because they like to go to their other friends and sit down and dinner and say,
we've got a Master Greenkeeper.
We've got a Master, and I didn't do it. Master Greenkeeper's always got given such conflict, and there's so much kind of talk around it. But for me, it was just about testing my own skills, not anybody else's, and just making sure that I'm doing it in the right way. So yeah, I had 10 years at Bearwood, where I did my Master Greenkeeper and my master's degree, and then I knew that I didn't want to be a golf course manager when I was 60. I didn't want to. And I was unsure whether I wanted to do it when I was 50. But I thought, to get there, I'm going to have to maybe leave early. I thought there was another golf course that I wanted to do. But I got down to the last two for a massive job, and I didn't get it. And there was that kind of point where I thought, okay, and I didn't want it. I'd done 10 years at Bearwood. I'd done a lot of things that we wanted to do, involved in massive construction projects. We've had an owner came in who's really had a lot of energy and money to really develop the golf course. And so I took an opportunity to go to Syngenta and move to take the UK business at Syngenta. So I've been doing that for the last 9 years. I started as head of UK and Ireland for Syngenta, and that really is turf and landscape, pest management and horticulture. But I went there because the turf and landscape bit is the biggest part of our sales and the biggest part of our engagement and the biggest part of our industry. So I went there, and they wanted me because I had good technical knowledge, but also respected course manager, and also because I think that my turf and landscape knowledge really was able to help. If you look at the Netherlands business, very much horticulture, flowers. So the experts that lead that business are very much got expertise in the flowers industry. Whereas if you look at the Middle East, maybe the pest management is bigger. So wherever the kind of biggest part of the business is, the people who run it tend to have the experience in in that part.
So how much of the Syngenta business in the UK is golf, specifically golf?
Well, it's very difficult. We can't split it out particularly because it's all turf. So we do an awful lot with horse racing. We do working with a lot of the jockey club. Our two biggest customers are probably Premier League clubs, so football, especially the increase in the training grounds. It's not just the pitch; it's the training grounds, which are really where
13 football pitches. A lot of these places,
and super high end.
It's the same.
Well, the one they just built in Liverpool, I'm a Liverpool fan. The one they just built when they closed down the former one is enormous. Like it's there's no cutting corners on the quality of any of those pitches.
No, but in terms of actual size of the business, in terms of turf and landscape, it probably represents a good 2/3, if not more, of the business. But one of the things when I got there, after about 4 or 5 years at Syngenta, right, kind of running the UK business, it's very much commercial organisation, and there's a lot of pressure on understanding business numbers, finance. And I wanted to move into a European role, which I sit in now, looking after all of the countries. And I felt like I didn't have the right business and finance knowledge that really would allow me to kind of do well in the boardroom. I run the business as probably what I remember from being a golf course manager and running the business from the P&L that I've got from managing the P&L for bunkers, top dressing, sand, fertilizers, chemicals. And as you move up, you end up is much more strategic role and less operational. So I just have completed my MBA at the University of East Anglia. So Syngenta said, look, we all support you. We see your path going into a European role. We'll work with you. You do your MBA, and then when the role comes available, then it's a real partnership. Brilliant. It's a brilliant company to work for. Absolutely outstanding. And they sort of like worked with me and said, look, this is the role. You've got to do your bit. We'll try and do our bit. And then as I finished my MBA, I got promoted to a European.
And you got distinction in your MBA as well.
I don't like to say that, but yes.
No, credit. Do you think it's a brutal qualification? With all the travelling you've done, and you've got 2 lovely young kids and a great wife, and you I know you really well, and you're like she sees like ships at the night with Lucy. And that's tough. Whilst doing the qualification as well, and trying to push yourself up through and learn something that's maybe a bit out of your comfort zone because you were a course manager, and now you're learning the business side. You're a completely different person to what you were 10 years ago now, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I think now, like, look, in the organisation, I've got really good, kind of academic and practical kind of agronomy skills, but I also now have a really good and strong kind of business understanding. And you met so many different people in that course. So I went obviously with Syngenta, but my friend Tom, he's kind of operational lead for AstraZeneca. James was head of engineering for Lotus. So you brought in a lot of skills and people that you wouldn't normally do, and together, and you learn as much from the other people in it as you did from those. And I'd spent a lot of my life around golf course managers, so you kind of all talk about golf course management. But it allows me able, and the main role at Syngenta is to support golf course managers, and that's what
I think Syngenta did a great job of that. Tough Science Live. You've supported Syngenta and yourself supported me down at Royal Cinque Ports with whether it be tournament support or clothing, whatever, sponsorship. I mean, all these things are fantastic, but the Tough Science Live thing is huge. We've been to quite a few of them, and a lot of people have attended them and get a lot from it, whether it be networking with other greenkeepers or learn about new products, and because we all do need these products, and I can't shy away from that.
No, I think it's a really interesting point. What we try and do at Syngenta is obviously the products aren't the cheapest, but the money and the value we create, my job is to put it as much back into the industry as possible. So we're here at BTME, we've got a really great stand. It's money for registrations for products that course managers need. And my job is to kind of try and hopefully understand what course managers need, and then we can develop the portfolio that really suits what they want. It's not always that easy. Insecticides and herbicides are particularly challenging. So, I think what we want to do is give back as much as possible. And that's why, Syngenta's really involved in trying to give back as much as we can and to the right way.
So when you talk about these products that you supply, how much of Syngenta's role, and this is again me as a complete outsider, is in the the complete development of these products rather than just the manufacture of them?
No, so we are an R&D company.
Yeah. So
we develop the products or the active ingredients from scratch. So essentially, if you're an active ingredient or a new product, life starts at Gellets Hill.
If Sam was an active ingredient, he would be a Trinexie I'd be as oxystrobin.
Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that long lasting.
Yeah.
Been there forever.
Staying for long.
rather than a growth rate.
Yeah.
No, so fortunately, the actual life of an active ingredient and the first start of the early screening starts in the UK. So at a place called Gellets Hill, now in Bracknell. And we develop the active ingredients. There's a lot of trial work there, and then it's probably about a 15-year life until it becomes a product at the end. So we do everything end to end. You start with probably 100,000 potential actives. After about 5 years, there's probably you're down to one or two, and then one comes out at the end. And it's super difficult, super expensive. It probably costs about 300 million to develop a new product. And let's be honest, that's paid for by agriculture. We just get the benefit in turf grass. And my job is to take, and not my job really, actually my team's job, and a guy called Rod Burke, who I work with, who's fantastic. His job is to kind of look at all the things that are coming. We've got a big team of people that are able to look at what's coming, see the products that are being developed for agriculture, and which ones might be suitable or possible that you guys can use.
Have an additional benefit to
turf
to
grass.
And with a lot of rumours going about that they're going to be getting rid of a lot of chemicals in the future, they have been saying it for years, and I think we would, well, speaking on behalf of Parkland golf courses, I think we'd really, really struggle to get rid of it. I mean, it could be a disaster, in fact. But they're talking about maybe even wetting agents in the future, and whether that's rumours or not, I don't know. But
no,
it's quite scary if that was the case.
No, look, there is some proposals, European proposals. So it's different now. We're out of of Europe, then we're not subject to them in the same way. The UK's got more, I guess, scope to make its own decisions. But essentially in Europe, there's proposals for a massive reduction or complete ban in what they call public areas or sensitive areas, I think.
Which essentially could be a golf.
No, it is a golf course.
Yeah, well, because people public are walking across the
This is what we were talking about with Lee last week, and my friend in Ireland too is somewhat concerned because of this legislation.
Yeah,
talking about.
So look, that's been proposed, but that includes biologicals as well. So the initial proposal, I believe, was really around pretty much a really wide scope. So we've worked really hard with a lot of the bodies in turfgrass, a lot of the federations, a lot of the organisations, to at least just put back and say, look, we'll try and. I think everybody wants to try and reduce the amount of chemicals that are used on turfgrass, but sometimes the agronomic conditions, look outside today. It's grey, it's been wet, it's kind of still quite warm. It's been really cold, but the agronomic conditions are quite conducive to disease, and so therefore without any portfolio or for people to use, sometimes it's difficult. Now we've got to keep trying to do more with less, and we've got to try and reduce the amount of chemicals. So definitely there's a more drive towards more biologicals. That's where Syngenta's going, for sure. Digital and biological, that's the future, that's where it's.
If you're driven by agriculture in the development phase, has a trend towards getting away from chemicals in the food chain, has that sort of then given opportunities in the golf space to sort of piggyback up some of that technology?
I think that's a really interesting point. I think for sure a lot of the driver is to move towards more biological portfolio, and so Syngenta for sure, and a lot of the other big agricultural chemical companies are really investing billions in biological and greener technology. Digital's a really big one as well, trying to kind of spot disease and reduce using digital technology like NDVI mapping to be able to reduce, to give people better awareness of when diseases might come so they can use less product. But one of the interesting things for me is the fact that with the modelling in agriculture, the assumption is there's no public. So there's no people. No one goes walking around in a farm field.
Yeah.
So the modelling is based on the fact that there's no people. So therefore, and also with the fact that there's a lot more stronger drivers to keep chemicals in or have chemicals in agriculture than there is in golf. It's going to be very difficult for golf to have as much stronger justification because there's a lot more public around and there's a lot more people about. And so what I think we're seeing is it's more difficult for us to find portfolio and products from agriculture because the parameters with which you're kind of measuring them by and you can see which ones you need is more challenging. So it's going to be super difficult.
That's really interesting because, as a layman, you think, well, the stuff that's going into the agricultural ecosystem, for want of a better word, we are eating at the end of the day somewhere down the line.
Well, not really, because there's what they call MRLs. So there's residue levels.
Yes.
So essentially, that you can't harvest them until residue levels. You can't just kind of spray it and then harvest it and eat it. That's not how it happens. So
it's decayed out.
So there's what they call minimum residual levels. So you can't harvest it. I'm not in agriculture, so I don't know exactly all the ins and outs of how it is. It's not something because we don't have MRLs in turf.
It's all degraded by the time that it gets to the.
But essentially, you can't. I think there's a little bit of a misconception that you're going to be eating the chemicals because they're all still on there. That there's an analysis and lots of modelling to make sure that it's within the safe levels. But I think everybody is trying to manage with less chemicals, and I think that's the right way to go. But
I guess it would take if everything was banned, it would give every greenkeeper a level playing field. There's no everyone's from the start, so there's no kind of cheating.
There is, but one of the interesting things to think about. If you banned chemicals in sensitive areas for golf, agriculture will still have them. And so it wouldn't be particularly difficult to go to your local farmer and say, could I have some Amistad?
Yeah.
And could you give me some of that? Because if they leave golf, they're not leaving the world. They're just going to be not available to turf managers. They're going to still be. And then you end up potentially with a more black market situation where people are applying chemicals that haven't been tested.
Almost impossible to police.
Absolutely. So I think that is, I don't think that's very good at all because it's not going to be, you will get a lot of people that go, right, stick to the rules and I'll do that. But everybody knows the pressure from members, the pressure to deliver services, the pressure to compete against another golf course round the corner. I think that it's not as straightforward as it might seem that, chemicals get banned and that's it. Because you could still go and buy them from the farmer. You shouldn't, but it's not going to be like they're not being manufactured.
Certainly bring a lot of trouble between greenkeepers if the guy next door, as you're playing by the book and the guy next door's been spraying ag chemicals and his greens are fantastic and you're really struggling because you're trying to do the right thing and all your members want to go down there and play, and I would imagine that wouldn't be a good scenario.
It would be a horrible situation because it would either be, you could worry for your job, like they'd say, oh, well, we're just going to get so-and-so from down the road to because his greens are better than yours, Bledge, without having the full picture. Or what do you do? Do you dob in your... I mean, it's a terrible thing. So a big part of what you guys must do is lobby the government.
I'm sure bigger help as well, don't they?
Yeah, Jim's been great. Like I think, look, we don't... Syngenta's mantra is to use, I guess, to provide portfolio. They're all registered by the government, but to try to work out the best way to use as little as you need. So to be able to accurately apply it, put it on with the right technology, to be able to understand the plant physiology, and that's what we're all about, at the stand. Try to do, if you do need to use it, and also, they're absolutely the most important thing is good agronomy. That comes absolutely. There's no
all the basics, good cultural.
I'm going to get on a bit of a sandbox. Go for it. But I think there's this thing about sort of like, feed and water or you apply chemicals, which kind of always gives an impression that you don't do the agronomy. It's either like, feed and water or good crop or good agronomy. And for me, under any circumstances, the agronomy has to be the number one bit you look to. Good aeration, good top dressing, balanced fertility program, sensible cutting height. That is absolute number one. But sometimes, even if you've done all of those things, there are additional agronomic pressures, so it means you might still get some disease. And so therefore, at that point, once you've done everything you possibly could to do that, you might then need to go and apply a fungicide. But and I think there is a time and a place, and it's just giving people the knowledge and the education about the right time and the right place. But it's got to be agronomy led. That it has to be, and that's what I believe. And I'm a golf course manager at heart still, and I just think that's the right thing. We applied fungicides when I was a golf course manager, but it didn't mean that I did less top dressing, did less aeration, manage my cutting height sensibly. The main thing for me was do all those things right, and if I do need a fungicide, well then at least I can sit back and say, well, I've done the best I can with all of the other. And there's pressure from members, isn't it? Faster cutting heights or tournament speed, or the guy down the road is cutting it lower.
But the way that we use fungicides these days is completely different to 5 years ago as well, because we used to have pure contact fungicides there for you, Sam, where the disease starts, you spray the fungicide and it stops. Right. Whereas now it's more we've got to go systemic, which means we need to a preventive. So we've got to look back onto the diary and see where you're potentially going to get some, or whether you're doing your maintenance and you've got top dress and a lot of top dress, and you're going to be working it in, you're going to be grazing the grass plant. Like, the best example I give the guys is like cutting your finger with a rusty knife, right, or cutting your finger with a clean knife, like the way if your mowers aren't sharp, whatever, but you're dragging in top dressing. We always seem to get fusarium after we put on a decent amount of top dressing. And you're trying to get your OM levels down, like we've got a lot of pressure with the open coming up, we need to firm the greens up. We can't be mucking about putting little 2-4 ton a hectare dressings down. We need to get it on, and sometimes we've had a wee bit of fusarium in some of the greens this year, but you can't, sometimes when it comes, it's too late.
Where does
it's already started?
If you're top dressing it, is that because it's something that's in the sun that you're putting on, or is it in the process of damaging the leaf from actually the
it's not in the sand. I guess it's just like when you get a cold, it's already there, ready to surface, and it's just stress, isn't it? And fungal disease.
Yeah, look, the disease is within the soil anyway, but what it's about is whether the conditions become prevalent to encourage the growth of that particular fungus. And so therefore when you're top dressing, you're the negative impacts is, one, you're bruising or damaging the leaf, so you're creating wounds that make it much easier for the fungus to get into the plant. And the second is, when you're top dressing, you're increasing generally the level of moisture in and around the crown, because you've basically created a kind of film around a blanket around it. So there's less air circulation around the crown, which is therefore generally going to be high levels of moisture. So the two things that you're going to need is an open wound for it to get in, and moisture for the fungus to be able to move, because it generally moves maybe in the water film. So you've just basically made very strong conditions to be able to do that. And also then potentially, if you're top dressing, you want some decent growth, so the plant's going to be growing. So it's
time of year as well. You could, in the autumn when you're trying to do your renovations, heavy dews, and I mean you're kind of struggling with putting on a dew suppressant. You could put on that to stop the dew form, but then you still need to cut the green, so you're cutting that off, so it's like pointless. And then it could just overnight spread like wildfire. I mean, we had one of the lads do our 8th green well. And the air circulation, because the houses and the trees up there are not quite so good. Then the next day, bang, it's gone, and then it's taken over.
It's interesting, and so this is a bit of a Hoylake diversion, but I guess it feeds into what you're talking about and the exposure the plant has to these diseases. Is that 8th green at Hoylake? If we had a flash flood and had a month's worth of rain fall down today, it's probably the 8th green and the 10th green that would show some effect of that.
Mm-hmm.
And those are two of the most elevated greens on the course. And of course, when they were built almost, the 10th green was built well over 100 years ago now, but the 8th green was built almost, I think it could be 100 years this year. And does that mean then the profile of the soil, if it's got a dew pond underneath and it's got a layer of clay and it's changed and it doesn't have the same sort of soil profile as some of the others, does that have a greater risk?
Definitely. It's not draining as well. It clegs the lowest out of all the greens, and then the first ones to show disease sign of that, and the putting green. And the putting green, obviously, with the sun going around the clubhouse, is in shade. So they're the ones that kind of rapid fire off first. But yeah, exactly that. You can do all your cultural controls to the absolute T, but then still be hit. So that's why, I mean, I'm one of the guys in the fungicide camp. I believe that we do need chemicals, and hats off to these guys that can go completely without and have no disease whatsoever. But even Hoylake, with its great sand profiles and 5 mil cutting height, which is, we're not kind of obsessed with speed, and no one's really complained about it, so we keep them as high as possible so we can take off that stress. But yeah, you're still going to get it. Even Mo Farah probably gets a cold, and you can be as healthy as you can be, but you're still going to get colds,
Yeah, I think one of the things that was really interesting and important is the fact that you indicated that there's been a real change in the type of fungicides that course managers get. The job is so much more difficult for golf course managers now that you've got to understand much more about the agronomy, because the products you're putting on are much more complicated and they work in very different ways. You've got all these different microclimate issues that you've got to kind of navigate through, and with more preventative management, it makes it more, can make it more challenging. I do think that, in the last 10 years, the job's become so much harder to get right in terms of, we continue to make it better, but it's meant that course managers have got to become more skilled, more knowledgeable, commit more time to education, really understand. And then also we've got to be better at kind of communicating how to use the products, the best way to use them more and more to
Well, you do, Syngenta do the art application help as well. So I'm really into spraying the side of it, and I help when you guys brought out that XC nozzle. I helped Mick Fans turn coat. We helped Mick Fans, lovely guy. He was we helped develop the new nozzles, which are air induction nozzles, and we literally go out and spray in a gale. It's fantastic, and they've pretty much changed our lives when it comes to spraying. The guys were used to the old T-Jet nozzles, and when I first went to Hoylake, we bought the XCs, and I showed the guys in the field. I was like, "There's an XC, there's a T-Jet," and watching them beside each other, it's a miracle. You can literally spray in 20.
Well, if you think that one of the main drivers for that, not the only, but one of the main drivers is, if you look at a farm field, it's fairly flat. So essentially the boom is not moving up and down whilst it's going over the crop. If you look at Mackenzie Green or whatever, as soon as it goes up, then the bottom comes down, and so you're much closer. So one of the drivers for that was to be able to allow the nozzle to give the same level of efficacy while the boom is lower than the 50 centimetres. And so, because you've got this going on a golf green with all the kind of, imagine all the, when you're spraying it, it's not very good for podcasts, it's me waving my arms around, but if you imagine that the booms are moving, laterally and vertically, that you're not getting that consistent application. So therefore, the nozzle is really designed to take out some of that kind of those issues and make it more consistent for what is a very moving item. And especially if you see a 2-tier green, you see the sprayer go up over it, it's just like really low, and then when it comes to the top, it's gone back up again. So
you can tell when you're spraying iron, though, like for Sam. So the iron makes the ground go black, basically, and if you put someone out that's had a block, then you'll tell in an instant, But with the XC nozzles, you get a beautiful kind of even spread right the way across, and different sizes for whatever you're doing. And we really get really anal about it, and changing and dropping pressures all the time, and changing nozzles depending on the weather even. I mean, speeds flying out 400 litres a hectare on a white nozzle, which to be like absolute bump to you, but it means we can fly around at 10k spraying wetting agent, and then dump a load of water on straight after.
I do remember I had a funny story. This one guy phoned me up. He says, "I've got to spray the fairways, but I need to pick up my children. How fast can I go?" So there's a Syngenta app where you can kind of go on and you can it's really good to help you kind of optimize, your spray. So you kind of type in all the things, it tells you kind of what you can do. And I was like, I worked out, I was like, you could probably get up to X whatever speed.
14.
Yeah, I think it was about 13 kilometres. I'm like, but I really wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, that's
But,
fast.
and he came and sent me a text at the end, said, I made it. I picked up the kids and I got all the various. So I was like, well, probably you should have just done half and did the other half tomorrow. But
we've got to work around weathers and diaries and stuff. And like,
yeah, for sure.
and one of the things that I'm going to look to go to in the next few years, a GPS sprayer, so we can literally start spraying at 3 o'clock in the morning. Because I live on site, I could take the first 3 hours and the guys coming at 6, they can go from then. I mean, I'm a Colibra user, so that's the Syngenta wetting agent, which I've used for 10 years now, probably.
Yeah,
and we've had really great success with it, and we've used it wall to wall. And this year at Harrogate, we'll be using it on tees, paths, fairways, surrounds, and greens. And if I can get out at 3 o'clock in the morning, get that on with a low water volume, and then dump a load of water on afterwards, like literally the second to leave the fairway, or go at a higher water volume. There's a bit of debate about it. We discussed this quite a lot because the Syngenta still say, well, you really need to go with the recommended 600 litres. But I'm always in the camp of, like, if I'm doing it at 400, or 366, I think, divides into 1,100. You get 3 hectares in a tank, so you're not having to fill it as much. You're not having to go back into the shed. Stay ahead of golfers. The biggest moan you get is if you've got water going off and there's golfers playing, and it's a nightmare. So I think we always have to try and problem solve and find a way through it, and these nozzles for me have given us a chance for that.
It's always a balance, I think, between efficacy and practicality. So there's always going to be, because ideally, you want a higher water volume, because then you're going to have essentially, a bigger nozzle with bigger droplets, so it's going to penetrate and get through. It's much more difficult to spray it in if you went at 366. You sprayed it finely, and then you've got to basically wash it off rather than not allow it to stick in the first place. And that's the difference, because if I, sprayed Bledge and then I've got to then try and wash it off him, it's much harder than having sprayed him and it not hit him in the first place. And so I think but you've got to get round in front of golf. You've got to be able to, make sure that the customers who, it may be their one game they've played, especially Royal Liverpool, they're not going, unless you remember, you're not going every day.
High green fee, and you need to. I wanted this when I joined the team. The big thing that I wanted was that greenkeepers don't come in to play with golfers, i.e. like Queenwood kind of place. We didn't want to upset anyone, so that's why we up more fairway mowers, and then went to kind of looking at different ways of spraying so we're not anywhere near them. But I think it's we mucked about a lot with these. Remember what we did with the Primo wetting agent thing, which was completely crazy. So the Primo would be very low water volume, 250 litres a hectare, which sticks on the leaf to stop the plant growing essentially and grow laterally. And the wetting agent is completely opposite, 600 plus 1,000 litre a hectare, because you want to wash it right off the plant and the crown into the soil. But I'd phoned up Dan and said, Dan, you might be being crazy, but we could mix them both at like 400 litres a hectare. Let the Trinex Fakethol work on the leaf, where it takes an hour to work, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, it gets in very quick.
And then at night, we'll put a big dump on and we'll wash all the wetting agent that was off the leaf and in. And we...
Yeah, well, James cost me about £20,000 for this. So, so we wanted to. So I kind of took it back to my team and said, because it's this practicality of green, which Syngenta really want to be able to support. If they can support an idea that helps a greenkeeper do it better, then great for us. Yeah. So Bledge factored me up about this idea, and I'm like, okay. So we set up this trial at STRI. So we had what we wanted to see. Could we basically tank mix the two? Now, there's two things here. Are they physically compatible in the tank? Fine. They're not going to separate out. They're not going to end up all the
gel
or gel. So there's one thing. That's fairly easy to do. But what we wanted to do, it's quite interesting how trials work and don't work sometimes. What we wanted to do, we wanted to be able to see whether there would be a beneficial impact, or that the Primo worked the same if you had applied it on its own, and the wetting agent would have applied the same, because you're basically mixing them together, and then you're trying to hope that they both work the same as what they did if you'd applied them separately. So it's quite a complicated trial to do, because essentially, if you want to know that the wetting agent's working, you've got to dry the soil down, because you need to see the difference between a hydrated soil and a non-hydrated, and the difference between the wetting agents. So to do the trial, you would have to, dry it down and then compare the control with the wetting agent one to see that the wetting agent one has retained more moisture than the dried down control. Following, is that all right so far? However, on the flip side, for Primo, if you dry down the soil, you're going to start going to permanent wilting point. The plant's not going to grow as much. It's going to have struggle in kind of, working. On the flip side, for the Primo, to work that out in a trial, you need to be a fairly hydrated soil. You need to be able to have a fairly good growth, so that then you can compare the growth, because the Primo is a growth regulator. So what you need to be able to do there is you need to be able to have both of them, the control plot or all the plots growing particularly healthily, and then apply the Primo so you can see whether it's reduced it. So we did it so we did it individually, but when you couldn't really. So when all the results came on, oh God, we're going to be able to say to the industry, you can mix it, and they won't. Yeah. And the problem was that in the dried down plots, in the mix, the Calibra showed that it was working, but you couldn't tell the Primo was working because there was growth regulation that was driven by the dried down of the soil. So you can't tell whether the Primos had an impact in that one. And then in the one where it was hydrated, you could see the Primo was working, but you couldn't tell the Calibra was working because you've maintained the soil moisture at 25%. So we done this big trial, and we ended up like, you can't. It's impossible to get an answer.
It's impossible to know.
Yeah, the only thing we did know was physically they were compatible, which could have cost about a couple of £100. I could have told you that.
I guess that's when a greenkeeper works through field, though, isn't it? And you would have to just say, right, I was working with 150 growth degree days at that point, so that's every 100. Well, I'm not even going to bother. I'll have to explain to you another time. It's a bit boring.
Yeah, we definitely haven't got time.
Anyway, you get to a certain point that if it had been really hot through the summer, you would probably spray every 12 days or something like that, because it'd be like coming off a graph, and you've got to get it bang on, otherwise you get a big flip of growth. And when we did that, we kind of felt that we didn't get any big bursts of growth, and it still kept doing the same. So as we going by the field, we thought it was a good trial.
It should, in principle, looking at basic agronomy, it should.
Interested to know if anyone does that still.
It should work fairly well. Interestingly, a lot of I think it's about like 80% or a large percentage of the Primo's taken up in the crown, not the leaf. So it's like, and actually, if you kind of put it at high water volume, it should be okay. It's just whether there's any. If you look at a chemical, any product like Primo, it's not just active ingredient. There can be up to like 200 co-formulants in there with loads of different stuff. Antibactericides. You need anti-settling agents. Yeah, there's a whole load of things that you need, and so it's always very difficult to be able to tell whether one of the co-formulants from one and one of the co-formulants from another might have had an impact in the delivery, because there's surfactants in them and all sorts. So it's very complicated and very difficult. But yeah, we never found an answer for that. Well, but we looked, and that's. You don't always get an answer, but what you want is you want course managers to come and talk to you and say, this is an issue. And we go, okay, great, we'll look into it. And that's what Syngenta.
We've always had super support from you guys at Syngenta answering the phone when we've got crazy ideas, because you could be onto something, and then it could be an absolute game changer for some greenkeepers.
One of the things that's most important for me is we've got to stay connected to the customers, understand what the challenges are. Now, it helps I've been a course manager, but, understand what the challenges are. This is why we've got to be at BTME, because we've got to understand what's the problems, what are the pinch points, what are the pain points, what's driving, kind of golf courses along, and how do we stay relevant to the customers and go, right, this is an issue for them. And we do that. And that's why, we can see that, there's a real drive in biologicals, and there's a lot of investment in there. But at the moment, we haven't found any that really are as efficacious as the chemicals. So there's that kind of balance. But yeah, it's interesting.
Your stand will be busy Tuesday, Wednesday, I would imagine. A lot of people ask me. It's always a very good stand. And
we've spent, as Kirsty and Therese and Glenn and Sean and me and all the team have spent an awful lot of time getting it all ready. We've got, we just got a registration in Ireland for a Celeprint. We're really, fingers crossed, hopeful we're able to get the same for the UK. So, we're just trying to, work hard to do the best for turf managers, really. And, it's been a pleasure. I'm so lucky I've been involved in turf for, since I was 18, just kind of ended up stumbling into it. It's been, and now I'm in the Badger Sett, kind of just, speaking to friends. Which is just
there's one thing I wanted to talk before this ends, and it was just a story of how you and I met, and I think it's an interesting thing for any budding greenkeeper that wants to work his way up. And how many years ago would this been? It'd be quite a while. Well, it was when it must have been 9 years ago.
Well, I tell you when it was. It wasn't. I thought it was just before.
I just started at Deal, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was it. I'd probably been a few years at Deal, so it'd be back 2013, 14. And I said to Strutty, we were talking about my career and how we were going to move forward, and he said, like, you need to get yourself another mentor that's not me, because we spend a lot of time with each other, and he was essentially, well, he was my boss just before that. And I said, well, have you got anyone in mind? He says, well, there's this great guy, he's at Bearwood Lakes, Dan Lightfoot. So I was like, right, okay, never mind. I'd known who you were because I'd seen you about in Harrogate. So I got in touch and you were like, yeah, come on over, no problem. You come up for a few days, put you up in a hotel. And I remember you said, do you want the normal treatment or the VIP treatment? I was like, VIP, obviously. So,
damn it.
He said, right, get me at 5 o'clock in the morning in the Bearwood car park. And I'll actually, to this day, and I'll never forget what you did for me for that, because it really opened my eyes into the life of a course manager, because Dan took me actually into his meetings, his budget meetings and everything. He had made me do all your accounts, like we sat over me whilst I did the accounts. But that's the kind of thing that they don't teach you a lot of the time. And we walked the course from 5 in the morning, and we stayed and we would sit in the balcony overlooking beautiful golf course, just talking tough management. And we did 2 days of that, and you gave me all your time. And then I wrote an article for the Bigger Mag on my days there. And I just think for anyone that wants to progress themselves, get yourself a mentor, or like ask a course manager that's got time, and spend some time with them. There's so many guys out there that will give you their time and to help bring you on. I think that's what's really beautiful about our industry, is folk like Dan and what they do, not only through in his time as a course manager, but still now through Syngenta. Never really too busy to offer advice or answer the phone. So the industry needs people like you, man. So thank you for all of that.
No, it was brilliant. I loved it. It was, I think if you look at it on the other side, I was just delighted to be asked. It's like, someone's recommended that, someone would want to come and learn something that you're doing.
Endorsements.
Yeah, I thought I was over the moon. I was like, I think you worry, probably young deputies may worry that no one would want to spare the time, or it's a bit of an imposition. But if you look at it on the other side, the other guy's like, oh, can I come and shadow you? It's a great honour to be asked. And
I've done it a lot since a lot of people have come.
Oh, I thought it was the only one.
Yeah, but no, other way around now. So when people have got in touch with us and have come down and spent a day at Deal and a few folk at Hoylake since, it's probably going to be more difficult now what we've got coming up. But obviously, like, because you did that for me, I'll have to give back as well. So I think it's very
it was brilliant. We've built a kind of long-term friendship, and
you've come and volunteered for us at the final qualifying a few times.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can still cut a straight line after all these years.
Yeah, but I cut one green twice. I remember one time. I think at Deal, it's funny because you kind of think the first green. Well, the first green's not where you always. I immediately always.
First green is it's closer to the clubhouse than most people's first green, isn't it?
Yeah, and so I think you gave me what greens I was supposed to do, and I went and cut one, and I realised that wasn't the one I was supposed to be cutting. So,
and someone didn't qualify for the Open because of that, Dan.
But no, it's been great. We've had a really great long term friendship, and that kind of built out by just someone kind of recommending to do some mentoring, which I think is great. It's a really good.
That is very important. So who's going to be your mentor, Sam?
Well, you're my mentor, Bledge. Tom Dock too. but that's it's funny. It sort of takes it full circle to what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, when you were saying about the education, the stuff that you found, the stuff that the qualifications that don't really exist anymore that you'd like to see more of. And all joking aside, I'm not in the turf industry really. I the passing association because of the architecture stuff, but really I don't really need to know a lot of the stuff, but I find it fascinating.
It massively helps.
And it helps, of course it helps.
Architects should understand basic greenkeeping, and it's great for you to be subjected to it.
And that's why I think that, you just even doing this podcast, I'd never have met you, Dan, without Bledge coming. And it's been a fascinating conversation, and it's the same with all of the people that we get on.
Andy met Lee Strutt last week, which is an eye-opener. The pair of them had a proper bromance.
Yeah, I just came from a class with Lee. I decided, because I struggled to kind of in my role that the education, less of it's applicable if you're not a golf course manager. But I was really interested to kind of see how Lee just did a budgeting course, and I was really interested to see how some of how course managers, the challenges they face around budgeting, especially with the rising costs of energy, costs of driving, fertilizer costs up, chemical costs up, and all those other things. So I just sat in Lee's budgeting course. I got it, sat at the back, but it was fascinating.
Yeah, he's good at that.
You still want to just stay connected to the people, but also it's just interesting to hear Lee's take on it. He's had a really wide and varied.
No, he is Mr. Education, isn't he? He's a big driver in our industry for that, and he does pretty good at it.
He does very well in.
So, but have you anything else, Dennis?
I was going to say, so who are you looking forward to? Who else will you catch up at BTME over the week? Because this is my first time here, so
do you know what? I was walking up here and it's like a school reunion every year. It's brilliant. You just, even on the way here, I give myself enough time, and I bumped into loads of people I knew, and I was like, that's what it is. It's not anyone in particular. You just see all of your friends, especially the longer you've been in the industry, the more you build up, and so I just love the fact that it's like a cross between a wedding and a school reunion, where you're
and a festival.
Yeah, where it's just all the people that you've spent a lot of time with. I love it. I love coming up, and also there's not always those facilities. I'd love to catch up with Bledge more than I can, but I'm racing here, there, and everywhere. He's got a massive tournament to prepare for, so it's just difficult to do that. So this does provide a really great platform just to catch up with people that you don't on a regular basis. As for one, no, but the many for sure.
I think you'll enjoy the what we call like the shop floor tomorrow when you look around the stands. You'll get plenty from that. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's always different, and you're also going to GIS as well. So, and Dan, you GIS?
Absolutely, yeah.
So the three of us will be there.
Should be good.
Exciting times.
Yeah.
Syngenta got a big stand at GIS.
Yeah. That's obviously run by the American team. So we have our global turf conference for Syngenta there. So I'm going to that. So we kind of have it around the big event. So GIS is obviously the big one. So but yeah, no, GIS is for BTME. We have to do so much work, so much planning. For GIS, that's all done by somebody else. So I can enjoy it a little bit more. Yeah, and that's where we have a long-term contract with Bigger, and we kind of work with them in terms of partnerships, and so yeah, Lauren and I will kind of do the contract. There's no chance, we won't have time to catch up with her here, but when we're in GIS, there's a bit more time to kind of do that. So, we've got a great relationship with Bigger, and a really strong one, and one that I think Jim's on next. We've got a great relationship with Jim. He's done a great job, and Syngenta really want to support Bigger as much as we can.
You've had a fantastic career, interest, and I've always followed it, and full of admiration of all the letters after your name. Yeah, I think you might have more than Lee Strutt now. That could be a good wind up.
Yeah. I'll have to dig out the chainsaw qualification.
Yeah, so I get him as well. I try and get ahead. But thanks very much for coming on the podcast.
Well, a bit like the mentoring, it's a pleasure to be invited. So thanks for your time. Really nice to meet you. And have a great week.
Super. Well done. Thank you, pal.